Hello, this is Jessica.
And Katie.
We're here today to give you a lesson on note-taking and test-taking skills. We know that note-taking and test-taking skills are two things that can help you a lot through your whole college career and can also be things that give us all a lot of anxiety. So hopefully after today's session, you're going to be able to feel better about your ability to take great notes and leave with some tips and tricks to improve your study skills.
All right, so when we do this presentation in person, we like to help everybody sort of make one connection. And that connection is that when we think about how study skills and note-taking skills, how it's kind of overwhelming, it kind of makes you feel alone, like you're in it alone. So we always have everybody write something down on a sticky note that says what they're anxious about, what they're nervous about, what they're unsure, maybe something they just wish they knew more about when it came to study skills. And so often we find that as soon as we go through the sticky notes that everybody has super similar worries and anxieties. A lot of times there are things like, am I taking enough notes? What am I supposed to be taking notes about? Am I studying enough? And we find that we're never really in this alone. A lot of us are feeling the same exact worries as the person sitting next to us.
So the first activity is we'd like to have everyone consider measuring their own note-taking skills. This is a self-assessment. It includes 14 questions, and we ask that the students participating really take in what the question is and reflect on if they always do this or most of the time do it, or if they never do it. And so if you never, ever do the things that we list, then you might want to write them down because they're all things that could be good tips for the future of studying. The first question is, do you often read and take notes on the week's reading assignments before class?
The second one, do you include the date and course title at the beginning of your notes?
Do you ask clarifying questions of your instructor if you do not understand a specific point?
Do you borrow a classmate's notes if you miss something during class or you're unable to attend?
Do you use a consistent and efficient note-taking system?
Do you take notes in addition to what is written on the board or included on a handout?
Do you paraphrase key points of discussions and lectures rather than writing words verbatim?
Do you find yourself able to participate in class and take notes all at the same time?
Do you review, update, and clarify your notes within 24 hours of class ending?
Do you keep your notes organized chronologically by course?
And after you take the notes, are you able to find them?
Do you review your notes even when a test is not coming up?
Do you find your notes legible and easy to understand while studying?
And lastly, do you feel that your notes were helpful study tools after you took the test?
So hopefully at least some of those you thought to yourself, yeah, I always do that. But if there's some of those that you thought you almost never do, then hopefully in this session you're going to learn some tips on how to make those improvements. So why is taking good notes so important? Well, research shows that after just 24 hours, 60% of the information we learn from a lecture is lost.
That's a lot of information. So when you take really great notes, you can review them within that 24-hour time period and make sure that the amount of information that you lose is as minimal as possible. Some other good reasons for taking good notes. One of them is really applicable to our campus is a lot of times our professor is the expert on the topic. The information we're going to get from that professor is going to be better than anything we could Google later on.
Mhm. Also, taking good notes can make you feel good about yourself, can make you feel like you got something out of the lecture, that you're learning. It can also prove to you later that what you learned in class was important because then you can use information on the test. There may be other reasons that you feel taking good notes is important. So make a note to yourself and remind yourself later when you're thinking about why you're doing all of this.
Make a note of it. Get it?
So next we're going to highlight 3 note-taking styles. The first is a method that a lot of students say they've used before in their perhaps high school career or other undergrad career. It's called the Cornell method. The Cornell method asks you to break your paper up into 3 major sections. The first section is in the middle. It's the biggest section. It's the one that says notes in the image here. And that's the information that you take during class. Those are your main points, bullet points, diagrams, abbreviations, outlines. In that area, you can be as free as you want. Cornell method asks you to leave space between your topics so you can read it better. But that's sort of your space to just put down the information as it comes to you during class.
This is where my notes look like a mess.
Yeah, I mean, some people use this with other methods like visual note-taking methods in here. This is your free space. But then after class is over, that's when you go to the side, the left-hand side with the cues. These are the notes that you write soon after class where you highlight the main ideas, people, vocabulary words that were covered in class and put them in a more clear order. That's a good section to use for review and study for later.
Yeah, and then that bottom part, summary, this is just a really quick couple bullet points of what you did during that day. This is something where you could write, talked about Lincoln and Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to organize your notes if you're not a person who typically has one notebook for one class. I know I always used to be a person who had the 5-subject notebook and would just have things all over. So that summary part could be really helpful there.
Absolutely. And at the top, you'll see Cornell Notes ask you to put your name, the date, the topic, and the class. So you can keep your things in order chronologically and by different classes. That way it'll be easier later to go back and review your summary and your cues when it comes time to review for class. The next is a form called mind mapping. It's a little bit harder to see as it's a visual method, so we're going to show a quick video from YouTube.
Hey everyone, so today we're going to talk about one of my favorite ways to take notes. Now traditionally, most students take notes in outline format, but one of the ways that I took my notes in nursing school was using mind maps, or how some students like to call them, concept maps. Now, the reason why I like mind maps over outlines when it comes to taking notes is because I feel like outlines force you to absorb and format your information and organize it all at the same time, which doesn't really give you enough time to kind of process the information and for you to make your own connection. With mind maps, on the other hand, you have time to absorb the information, kind of make sense of it on your own, and then with the mind map, you can draw connections between the different material that you're learning in that particular class. And that's actually the way that our brain normally works. When we receive new information, our mind automatically starts associating it to things that we've learned in the past, which makes it easier for us to recall later on when we need the information. So what I'm going to do now is switch camera angles, and I'm going to show you how simple it is to create a mind map of your notes. Now the catch with mind map is that you need to have already gone to the lecture or read the material for the particular section. You're going to start off with a blank piece of paper, and either in the middle or at the top of the section, you're going to write the main topic. From there, you're going to branch off into the different sessions that make up that particular topic. As you guys can see here, I'm basically breaking down the different types of diabetes. This is type 1 and type 2. I'm going into what causes each of them, and then what are some of the signs and symptoms of diabetes. I'm using arrows, clouds, and circles to kind of pinpoint specific sections section. And then to add color, I'm using highlighters, and I'm also using colored sticky notes to just draw my eye to particular sections that I'm going to need to know for my exam. And it also makes it really pretty when things are colorful. And let's be honest, as girls, we want our notes to be pretty as well as informative. Often I use arrows to draw my attention to what would come next in a particular section. So once I understand what causes diabetes and what the signs and symptoms are, I might want to know what a nurse would do to confirm if somebody has diabetes. So in this case, we would do a glucose tolerance test. So the arrow is pointing to that coming next. One of the things that I also like to do is use really bright sticky notes for information that I'm going to need to absolutely know for my exam. And it kind of just breaks it up. And it's something that I can peel off if I want to test myself later. Get creative with your mind maps and make them yours. And that's it. I hope it.
All right. So this is a great video from Clarissa about mind maps. The beauty of mind maps is that they're totally flexible to whatever you're interested in. But the third type we're going to talk about is outlining. And this one's not quite as flexible, but it is really useful.
It's not as flexible, but it is flexible in the ways that you can use it. So outlining you can use when you are taking notes in class. You can use it when you are writing a 5-paragraph essay, when you are completing research, because really all it's doing is breaking up things into categories for you. And then you are arranging them in the way that makes most sense to you. So we've all probably used outlining at some point or another. This copy here is just a really great template that you could use if you wanted to. You'll see up at the top, you have the name, the date, the topic, the period. This is to, again, help you keep your notes organized. And then from there, you're going to have your main idea, subject, your supporting ideas, and then details and examples. Since this is a method that isn't as flexible, you do kind of have to go in that order, but these are just your notes. They're not for anybody else. Maybe someday if you become famous, they'll be in a museum, but really that's about it. So you can jot down keywords, you can jot down sentences, whatever it is that you can write in order to remember whatever it is that you're listening to while still being able to pay attention.
Katie, wouldn't outlining notes also be really helpful if you were trying to do something like plan a paper?
Super helpful. Yes. So when I was in school, this is the way that I did a lot of my research. So for example, let's say my research is going to be on volunteerism. That would be my main idea or my subject. And then from there, I would need to have my supporting ideas. And I would write those in the 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then from there, under details and examples, I would find references. So whether they be scholarly articles, things from a textbook, videos, I would write them in there. So I might say, Strengths for Students, page 63, and I would mark that in the book. I would have that on my list, and then I would put everything in order so that when I was ready to write, it was very simple to know exactly what I was writing and what I was referencing as I made my way through the list.
So Katie, we're talking about these note-taking methods, and I have a note-taking method that works really well for me, but it's kind of a combination of some of these different things. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, none of this is, like the end-all be-all. So try the Cornell method, try the outlining method, try mind mapping, and then you might find that the best thing that works for you is a combination of all three. The beauty of note-taking and the super secret that nobody knows
dun, 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 dun.
Is that it is completely up to you to find out what works for you and then do just that. This is all about your success. And so if your perfect way is mind mapping and outlining, which I guess, I'm not sure. I don't know what that looks like. But if that works for you, you do that every single day.
Absolutely. So no matter what style we choose, though, there are some important steps we should take for amazing notes. Those steps occur before class, during class, and after class. So first, before class. Before class, it's really important that you check your syllabus. If you don't know what you'll be covering, you're not going to know what kind of things you need to be listening for when the teacher's talking. It's also important to complete any assigned reading before class. Again, that will help you be prepared with the right terminology, the right information when it comes time for note-taking.
Definitely also review your notes and handouts, materials, whatever it is you have from the previous class period. A lot of times your next class is going to build off of what you did the week before. And if you have a great understanding of what you did the week before, you're going to set yourself up for success in that upcoming week. Or let's say on the other hand, you're still kind of confused about the week before. This is going to give you an opportunity to jot down some questions, maybe make some stars next to some things you didn't really understand, and then ask those questions before you go even further in the course. Also, seems kind of self-explanatory, but you would be surprised. Find a good place to sit in the classroom. I am a person who cannot see far away, but for some reason, I always find a spot in the back row sitting next to a wall. I like to be comfortable. Then I realize I can't see anything. So if I'm trying to be successful and I know that, I need to do a little bit of extra work, I will make sure that I sit closer to the front and I'm away from, those people who are constantly texting or whispering, because I know that's going to distract me.
Yeah. And if you know that you're someone who does better with having information in front of you, feel free to ask the professor or look on Canvas for presentation slides, notes, handouts. If you know that your professor always uses PowerPoint, you reach out to them and ask if you can have a copy of that ahead of time so you can take notes directly on the material. These are things you might have to go out of your comfort zone a little bit to get the information, but if they help you, definitely you have to be your own advocate and reach out for those things. So next, during class. What should you do during class in order to get the best notes?
Do your best to maintain concentration. So this builds right off of find a good place to sit. Right now, there are so many distractions. We have news, we have fake news, we have cell phones, we have computers, we have people next to us on cell phones and computers.
Somebody's coughing.
So many things. So try and find that best place that works for you. If you are able to concentrate better, if you're comfy, be comfy. If you concentrate better in your online course when you're at the library versus at home, go to the library. Make sure that you are, again, doing what's best for you in order to be successful.
So since you've prepared before class, you'll be able to listen for and write down key points while you're in class. And when you're doing that, you want to use a note-taking format that works for you. As we talked about, not every note-taking format is going to be the same for everybody. And some of our note-taking formats might be a combination. But again, it's what works best for you. It could seem like the best note-taking format in the world, but if it's not working with your study style, then it's not the best one.
And lastly, during class, make sure that you're actively listening, participating, and discussing. A lot of times, in order to better understand something and better remember something, we need to do it in more than one way. So if that means that I need to write something down, I need to talk about it, and then I need to hear somebody else explain it in a different way, that's actively listening, participating, and discussing. At the end of the day, I'm going to be able to repeat back the concepts that I learned in my own words and therefore be successful on the test.
So Katie, here's a question for you, all right? If I'm in a class and I don't know something and something's unclear, but I'm kind of afraid to say anything, should I still ask questions?
You should definitely still ask questions, for sure. So often our professors are excited when you raise your hand and say you have questions. Really, the class time is for you. You're paying for that time. And so take advantage of the time that you have there. And you never know. The people sitting around you most likely have very similar questions to you. Now, let's say, you just run out of time. There isn't a good opportunity to raise your hand and get that question in. Stay after class and ask the professor. If this is an online course, send that professor an email as soon as you can. A lot of times, online courses will have, some sort of chat feature that you could get an instant response. but also reach out to your peers. Let's say after class, the professor leaves right away. Ask the students who are still in the classroom with you, hey, what do you think about this? Do you know the answer to this? I'm not sure how this works. Same thing in an online course. If your professor isn't following up with you quick enough, feel free to reach out to one of your peers and ask them the question.
Well, that's a great segue into our next question, because now we've finished class, we've talked to some of our students on the way out, but now it's after class. So what should we do to really make sure that we're getting the best notes and getting the best information for later?
So like we said before, regularly review your notes within 24 hours. You're going to lose 60% of whatever you did during that course if you don't review within that 24 hours. That is over half of that time. Wow. It's kind of a waste of time if you don't just quickly review your notes. This is a great opportunity to maybe organize them, highlight some important things, maybe just jot some things down on a to-do list, but make sure that you're reviewing those notes.
Could be a great time too to work with the study group and compare notes amongst each other, right?
Yeah, it would be. Where do you find a study group?
Well, a good place you might look for a study group is maybe to stop into Information Commons. A lot of times, a lot of students study in here after class, and the people who work here can often help you point something out. Another good place might be to look down in the student commons area where other students study, or after class, raise your hand, look around and say, hey, I'm going to go study after this. Does anyone want to go over notes together? Because it's really possible, Katie and I could take the exact same class and maybe she heard something in the notes or in the review session that I didn't hear. We'll work together and we can reinforce our concepts.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. So just building off of that, identify the key concepts and supporting details as you review. If you're doing this with a friend, it's a lot easier to figure out.
You also can use the time after class to reorganize your notes to make them suitable for studying. So if you did do your Cornell notes and that note section is really, really messy, this is when you can make sure that your cues and your summary is really clear. Sometimes you might want to rewrite things if it seems like you have a lot of things crossed out. This is just a really good time when all the information is still fresh to make sure that it's in your head. It's also a great time after class to consider what you still need to be successful. There's a lot of things that the classroom's not going to be able to cover, but if you recognize that you perhaps need tutoring services or you need help with test preparations, that's a great thing to start looking for resources. We have resources all over campus to help with that, including learning support services, information commons, tutoring, the professors themselves, and all you need to do is reach out to an advisor or one of our really friendly staff or faculty members to help get you the information that you need. So we hope that this short session has been helpful for you to get some good tips for note-taking and study skills. We want to remind you that we are here for you along with the advisors and all of the Green to Gold team if you need anything. So I'm Jessica.
And I'm Katie.
And we're saying bye-bye.
See you later.